right now we're missing the right pieces to finish the puzzle.
Awada now shoots and score. George Awada.
Doesn't help anybody when they're getting on guys' backs and when they're shouting negative thoughts, and you can hear that, and it's not going to help anyone. So just stick with it and cheer your team on.
And Awada's feet the puck up in front, and it's there. The Belfast Giants have two. That's Ryan Crane.
And the puck's up in the air. LeBlanc has that one in. I think well, he's got lucky, but there's a shot from Kuiper, and it's 4-0.
Yeah, it is frustrating because I know we can be better. We have been, and we expect more from ourselves.
Matty Soderstrom gives him a shove. He's not going to wheedle his way out of that one, but George Awada is going to wheedle the puck into the back of the net. That's a hat trick for big George Awada. It's Coventry Blaze 2, Belfast 5.
Yeah, for sure. It's a wake-up call for everybody, I think. When you're not doing your job on the ice, your job's definitely not secure.
Last year, Tomo's hands were tied in a couple of situations. Hopefully this year, he's got his hands free, basically, to make changes.
Coventry Blaze, a team under fire this week, getting booed off the ice after losing 5-2 at home to the Belfast Giants. On this week's Blaze Roundtable, the team respond. We talk to assistant coach Luc Chabot about his view on the weekend's games.
Captain Jonathan Weaver addresses the booing and gives his message to fans.
We get a player's perspective with Mike McLean.
And James Pease says what you can do to help your team. Hello everybody, welcome to the Coventry Blaze Roundtable for this week. I'm Ed Kimberley and I'm joined here by Paul Wheeler. Just to give you a little situation update, if you've not been following what's been going on. Coventry lost to the Belfast Giants 5-2 on Sunday night, and they were booed off the ice. And Tomo and myself, we were heckled when we do our post-game interview in Crosby's as well. There's been a little bit of ruckus about it on the various Fire and Ice forums and various places. Where fans have had their say and they can have their say, and we've done this show as we're going to do it today to give the players a way of responding as well.
Here is assistant coach Luc Chabot, who spoke to Ed about his feelings following the game against Belfast.
Right now, just there's something missing, and we just gotta find the right pieces, basically to get together like a jigsaw puzzle. And right now we're missing the right pieces to finish the puzzle. So we'll be looking and discussing options, and might well do some needed adjustments.
Is it going to be defence that gets changed up again, or are we going to try and get someone going forward?
Well, everything's got to be looked at, not only one aspect of things. I'm sure the people in the crowd have their own opinions about individual players and stuff, but that's what people do, which is fair enough. They pay their money and they can say what they want, but at the end of the day, we got to sit down and go through what players are blending into our long-term plan.
Okay, so one last question. Obviously, there is a lot of displeased Blaze fans. If you went in Crosby's, it was a bit hostile. Tomo was expecting them to be baying for blood. What's your message to these displeased Blaze fans?
Like I said, we feel your pain, but fans here have been spoiled over the last 7 years, and I don't think they've realized how good they've had it, and now all of a sudden things are not working out perfectly the way they want, and or they're accustomed to, and they're voicing the displeasure. But realistically, the teams achieve great things here, and obviously we'll be working our hardest to get back to that stage again.
So Luc Chabot there with a fairly clear message to Blaze fans, saying that they've been spoiled and the booing isn't going to help the team. Do you agree with this, Ed?
I certainly do. The booing confused me because, okay, fine, Blaze fans can express their opinion about games. That's fine. I've got no desire to censor them, and I think it's great when the Blaze fans do give feedback. For me, it was weird because it was a 3-goal hockey game that we lost because of mistakes. Shea Guthrie turned round and he said, what was that all about? What was the booing all about? And it doesn't help the players who are there now if you're booing them. We're going to talk to Jonathan Weaver in a second about his reaction to it and his message to the fans about the booing. But we spoke to Paul Thompson, me and Paul, about an hour ago, and he gave us a few pointers and a few tips about doing what we do. And he talked about the booing. That came up. And he said, it's not just the guys that are getting disheartened on the bench that we've got. It's guys that potentially we could be bringing in that is a big problem, because agents are now getting told by players they don't want to come to play for Coventry because it's not a nice place to play. And that is because of things like the booing and the extensive criticism, which comes as a product of this kind of what Luc Chabot calls being spoiled. And Jonathan Weaver, we spoke to about this and we discussed this effect with him, and he had this to say to fans.
Well, you got to take the rough with the smooth, and obviously we had a terrible season last year, and it affected us just as much as it affected them. But you've got to stay with us because, you need your home fans, and you need this place to be a cauldron, and we feed off them as and obviously they feed off us too. But we need them to be in the game and making noise and cheering us on. It doesn't help anybody when they're getting on guys' backs and when they're shouting negative thoughts, and you can hear that, and it's not going to help anyone. So just stick with it and cheer your team on.
I should expect then Jonathan Weaver, as Blaze captain, saying that the team know they can do better, and they were, I'd say they were fairly fighting words. They were basically saying, we know this isn't right, we know we're going to sort it out, help us out, back us up. And, it does basically, it's interesting that both Luc Chabot and John Weaver emphasise to fans that they need to, back their team up and not turn on them instantly. And both of them say that the club have been spoilt somewhat. And, we said it's not nice for players. We've heard as well, you mentioned that there's agents in the conversation with Paul Thompson. We were talking about him, and he was talking about several players within the Blaze camps and how he'd had one-on-one conversations with them and how they were obviously down. Jonathan Weaver's getting a lot of criticism. We were told by Paul Thompson that he was injured and could barely push off on his right leg. He was carrying an injury at the weekend. So that certainly puts a lot of the criticisms that fans are giving Weaves in a different light. But Ed, it's interesting. They say they have this effect on players. But you mentioned the agents as well. It clearly says that Weaves is saying get behind the team. So would you say that booing is in fact hurting the club, not just now but in the future, because it's changing the reputation of the Blaze?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it says it all, doesn't it, when you've got players potentially coming to the club that don't want to because of the hostile atmosphere. And it affects the players that are in the club. I mean, we spoke to Mike McLean. You're going to hear from him in a moment. And he said, he wanted to come to the club because of the attractive package that Paul Thompson can offer, i.e. with university and with the winning tradition that we've got here. We also asked him about what it's like to have your job on the line, and he had this to say. Tomo's mentioned that he's looking at bringing someone else in. This must, obviously it's bad because you don't know if your job's on the line or not as a player, but presumably it's good because it kicks you up the bum and makes you work harder in training. Is that kind of what goes on?
Yeah, for sure. It's a wake-up call for everybody, I think. When you're not doing your job on the ice, your job's definitely not secure. But we need to put up some wins. We can't be having one good weekend, one bad weekend. We need to keep pace with everybody in the top of the league, and to do that, if that's what it takes, that's what's going to have to happen.
I think he speaks for everybody in the dressing room when he says that. And centre Mike McLean has been one of the players getting major criticism from the Coventry Blaze fans.
Before I spoke to Tomo, we had the conversation about the guys, and I spoke about McLean, and I backed him up completely because I watch Mike McLean and I see a guy that's busting his gut. And I see a guy that's got a good two-way game, and he gets in the corners and he throws himself about. But Blaze fans want imports. When they look at Mike McLean on paper coming into the team, they see a guy that's a point a game in the Coast. He's over a point a game in the Central League, and for that one season he played in the American League, he was half a point a game. And they want him to be up there with Luke Fulgham. And at the minute, he's not putting the puck in the net. Now, whether that's he's him getting used to the team, him not quite fitting in, I don't know. But Tomo is going to stick with it. And, his job as coach is to bring the best out in players. And he's going to do that with McLean.
Indeed. We're now going to move on. We said we'd talk about where Blaze go from here. Obviously, fans on internet forums have lots of different views. Mike McLean's been getting criticism. Davy Phillips has been getting criticism. Jonathan Weaver's been getting criticism. Everybody's changing. So basically, Ed, what do you think the Blaze are going to have to do to get out of this?
Well, I'll use the Belfast game as an example because it was turnovers from the back end that cost us. And you know what? Tomo's addressing that problem. He said that he's got rid of John Gordon for a reason, and he's brought in Dustin Wood. And his reasoning for bringing in Dustin Wood is because he needs a guy that is going to be a shutdown guy. Someone he can put on with Jeremy Domish in the last minute or two of a game and shut the other team out if it's a 1-goal game, we need that win. And the ordering of defensemen, obviously we talk about a number 1 defenseman, a number 2 defenseman, etc. And at the minute, from speaking to Tomo, it's all up in the air. You know, John Gordon was slotted in there. He's been yanked out. You've got Weaver playing as a number 1. He's got that bit of an injury. You've got Domish as a number 2. You've got Davy Phillips as a number 3. And bringing in Dustin Wood, he's coming in as a number 1 defenseman, guys. So he's going to restore order to that. He's going to be playing as a number 1. You're going to have Weaves as a number 2. You're going to have Domish as a number 3. Phillips goes to a number 4. Then you've got Cowley number 5 and Griff at 6. And he mapped it out for us. It's quite a simple table. And it goes on what they bring to the team. And it also goes by where they've played in the past as well. And what essentially skill sets they have.
Indeed. It was a very eye-opening conversation with Paul Thompson. Indeed, he did say that he had spoken to several players and told them in no uncertain terms that he wanted them to keep playing better. We've come away from that conversation very sure that Paul Thompson, contrary to what some people might have said about him in previous years, is hurting more than probably anybody at the moment at the problems at the Blaze and wants to improve them. Obviously, life does go on though. Blaze this weekend away in Braehead and up in Hull, and Hull is a Challenge Cup game, which is, you know, the competition in the Challenge Cup is gone, but there's no way they're going to get through. And a lot of the people have said that the Blaze game this Sunday is going to be pretty much a dead rubber, and it's not worth attending for. We spoke to James Pease about this, and here's what he had to say about what Blaze fans can do to help the team get out of their slump.
You know, I think obviously we're a little bit disappointed after last weekend, but, you know, the best way for us to get back is for everyone to rally back together, you know, for the players to get back together, for the fans to come back and support us this Sunday. We want to get, you know, 2,500 fans back through that door. We want the place rocking. We want to get behind the players, and we want to continue our campaign.
Okay, that's very interesting what James has got to say there, Paul. And I think our final point from this week's roundtable leads very much firmly on from what James has got to say. And it's quite simple. You know, if you care about the club, it's great. Fine, you can express your opinions. And if the team get thumped 10-1, like we did against Nottingham at home, you know, fair enough. Booing is probably something that is acceptable. Because if we've lost 10-1 to a team on our own ice, they probably deserve it, to be fair. 9 out of 10 times they've deserved it. But a 3-goal hockey game against Belfast doesn't warrant it. And if you want to help your team come through the door on Sunday, come to the Hull games, come to the games where there are teams against you don't necessarily think, oh, great, they've got a lot of spark, they've got a big budget, whatever. Come through the door, and after the first couple of minutes of the Blaze game against the Giants, the first shift with Fulge, he had a great shot which was stopped by Murphy, and after that they went up the other end and scored. And as soon as that happened, the fans' heads went down and the players' heads went down. Okay, the players' heads might go down, but it's up to you as the fans, as well as the coaching staff, are well aware of that, to help them bring it up. You are essentially the sixth man out there. I know it's a cliche, but you are. And we really want to have the Sky Dome rocking on Sunday. We want to have the songs from yesteryears coming through. We know, you know, there's a Fire and Ice thread about it, about player songs. Let's have some of them, because there have been few and far and in between so far this season. And if you want to help the team, that's a simple thing you can do to do it. Come through the door, be vocal, be on your feet, and show us why you love this club.
We, of course, will be there on Sunday for the Blaze webcast. We hope that all of you, too, will be joining us. We hope to see you there, and we hope to be on the round table next week celebrating a fine victory against Hull and not focusing on the negatives. And Braehead, of course, as well. But that's about it from this week's round table. We'll be back next Wednesday with more player interviews and views from inside the Blaze camp. But for now, from me, Paul Wheeler.
And from me, Ed Kimberley, as well.
It's thank you very much for listening, and goodbye.